And away we go. It is the Nightcap, brought to you by Galactic Fried Chicken, right here on BearcatJournal.com, www.galacticfriedchicken.com for everything Galactic. Go to the website. They will deliver right to your front door, pretty much anywhere inside the 275 loop, or head down and see our good friends in Dayton, Kentucky. Tell them to pump it up. Save yourself 15% off of the Galactic goodness. Also, the patio is open, and Aaron, you will love this. Shane on a whim one night. You can pull it up. I want to see your reaction. Shane on a whim one night just bought all of the mini helmets in the Big 12. He didn't tell his wife. He didn't do anything. He just went on Amazon and bought all of them. So he's trying to figure out what
not
to
like
do
the
with
baby
them.
ones, but like okay,
like these.
Yeah. Okay, that's. I wanted to make sure. I wanted to make sure they were that size and not like the little stupid plastic ones that.
Okay. Every Big 12 school in the new Big 12, all 16 schools, he has one of these. And I'm like,
Shane's a wild card. He's a wild card.
He is. You got to put him around the restaurant.
For sure.
In different places, like Easter eggs. This one autographed by Brian Cook.
He's got a couple rings.
He does.
A couple.
So there you go. All right.
So we were doing our thing, looking for things to discuss, and tonight we have a new article brought to you by Sportico.com, which is not one that we've dabbled in before. I'll say that. This article written by Michael McCann. It's titled UAB Players Joining Athletes.org Means Time for Labor Law Refresher. Now, this particular article discusses Trent Dilfer, who is a bit of a wild card himself, basically just encouraging all of his players to go ahead and unionize because it's better for you, truthfully. And this all comes in the face of the NCAA, who is currently embattled in a lawsuit titled Johnson versus NCAA, in which they are arguing that the players are employees of the teams that they play for. And so we're kind of back in that discussion. But the thing I want to point out and kind of focus on in this discussion with you, Chad, is the fact that Trent Dilfer is doing something that really no other coach, I think, is actually brazen enough, bold enough, has the balls to put his neck on the chopping block, because I can't imagine that this is widely accepted, because schools are doing everything they can, kicking and screaming, to avoid labeling the players employees. But he's encouraging these guys to become union members of athletes.org, which would not recognize them as employees either, but rather a part of a trade union. So it does kind of put some limitations on things, but it also allows the players to have financial means for legal ramifications and also for insurance purposes.
So here's the thing. And I was talking about this with a friend in the business that has been in the business longer than me. Like I think 10, 12, 15 years, maybe longer than me today. And we were talking about where a lot of this is headed, how coverage gets, prioritized. And a lot of it came down to, the transfer portal versus high school recruiting and all the things that we have talked about on this show kind of ad nauseum. And he was talking about how important, contracts are. And I guess if you're the NCAA, you're probably angling towards, at the most, making college athletes W-9 employees and not W-2 employees, like independent contractors and not payroll. Of course, right? Of course.
I was trying not to laugh.
And what I said, he made a lot of really good points on the topic, but my response was, aren't the athletes and their representation just going to continue to sue until they have a seat at the table?
They should.
Because what if they don't like the terms of the school constructed contract? What if they feel they're being lowballed?
That's where we're at. That's where we're at. They don't like.
Well, no, they're not. They're being no balled right now. They're like a puppy you just got from the shelter. No balls. They don't have any say in any of this, and until they get representation, even if there is revenue sharing, I think the number we talked about last night, 20%. The Big 12 or the Big 10 and the SEC want to share 20% of their revenue with the student athletes.
That's
hypothetically. That's
only the revenue that they're getting from the TV contracts. That's
sure. That's not all revenue.
That's not any of the revenue from the merchandise, from ticket sales, from anything. That's strictly the media deal.
Right. And that's, if you look at the pro leagues, it's right around 50%. And that is an owner's player situation, not a college president's student athletes situation.
So I want to stop you right there, and I want to talk about the fact that this article brings up the fact that for years the NFL was also a trade association under 501c6 of the IRS or the Internal Revenue Code, and that allowed the league to be tax exempt. And currently, you're also seeing these universities operating as tax exempt. Now, if they were to employ these players and go down that road, now you're probably going down the same road of the NFL, and maybe you're able to hide behind the facade of the fact that we're doing this for the student athletes, maybe. But you also potentially are running into the fact that now you'd have to pay taxes while also paying the kids, and that's also going to hit into all of the revenue.
Right. Imagine paying taxes on $100 million, $200 million, or $300 million for some of them.
It's almost like having to pay taxes every time we go to the concession stand or buy that T-shirt at the stadium of which we're going to see the team play.
Right.
Crazy, I know.
So, Dilfer one is kind of the perfect Easter egg for a guy that can kind of take this stance. One, he's at UAB. UAB is not going to garner national prominent headlines. It's going to be something that, like we saw yesterday, it pops up and then it kind of just fades into oblivion, as Mike Tyson would say.
When he took this job, he wasn't really looking for a college coaching position, right?
Right.
It just kind of fell into his lap.
Right. I mean, well, he's a high school coach. I'm sure he was,
but he was already he was involved in other things to get guys. I think he's more interested in developing the guys to get to.
Yeah, I mean, he did work with the Elite 11, the quarterback summer circuit. He's got, I think I looked, I think his net worth is around $10-12 million, something like that. He's got wealth. Like he doesn't need
generational wealth.
Yeah. He doesn't need his, not anymore. That's like yeah, I don't want to get into it. Anyhow, he's got wealth. I'm not going off that. We're not jumping that ramp.
Avoiding politics.
Yeah. We're not jumping that ramp into the swamp. And he's not part of the old boy coaching network. He also
relatively new to all of it.
He also was part of the NFLPA. He's a team rep and understands the importance of this.
Of a union.
Of a union, of a protection for the players. Why would we possibly think, Aaron, the players might want protection against a system for a century. And more importantly, a quarter century where profits have skyrocketed and the people in charge have just been putting the money in their pocket and doing everything they can not to share, to the point they're making the fans pay the players to protect the sanctity of the old boy like network.
Well, I mean, to take a situation that's currently ongoing, and we're seeing what's happening in Colorado and the way that is going, the way that the whole players and coaches and staff and the interactions that are happening, not just privately, but also publicly on Twitter and
Very
what have you.
publicly. Yeah.
Um, these things wouldn't be happening if you had a union set up to protect your rights as an employee. You would not be treated this way at all. You don't see this happening in the NFL for these exact reasons, because you have guardrails set up to protect you as a player from just being kicked to the curb.
I would also say, we talked about this a little, what's being done in Colorado is just a blatant disregard for the humanity of the people that are being tossed to the side here.
But isn't that why we set up a union in regards to
an extent, yeah,
your rights?
Well, but I mean, you know, if you're in an at-will work environment, they can let you go for any particular reason.
And that's one of the things that a union would set up, though, is parameters for if you were at a school not being able to. The schools don't want you to be able to freely transfer. If you had a union set up where you were able to collectively bargain what you were allowed to do and what you weren't allowed to do, maybe you set it up for the fact that you have to be somewhere, if you go somewhere for X amount of time, maybe not just 1 year, but you're there for at least 2 years if you go somewhere, or whatever the case that they would actually collectively bargain. But you wouldn't have situations like this where you're expecting to go to school for more than a semester before you're being told, nah, this really isn't working.
Yeah. You never played in a game. You transferred in January. You went through a couple practices in the spring where you're trying to acclimate yourself to your new environment. And then at the end of the spring, you weren't good enough in the spring. You're out. Get going.
And I think that's the difference, though, between a student athlete and somebody going to try and make a roster on a practice or even a practice squad in the NFL. That's kind of the difference here. But we're kind of getting lost in the weeds here. Going back to Trent Dilfer, I think the fact that he is the person spearheading this right now, because nobody else is being talked about this outside of Dartmouth, who's already made their team employees, which is the only other school in the entire country that's already done this.
Well, Northwestern tried it. There's been others that have kind of dipped their toes in this water, but nobody's really committed to it yet.
Northwestern tried to get everybody to sign up for a union, whereas Dartmouth, they've actually recognized the players as employees. Yeah. But it's a private school, a little bit different than state-funded schools, so not really apples to apples there.
And they're not making $100 million. They aren't revenue sharing all that much revenue.
It's Dartmouth.
Right.
Right.
So here's your piece of the pie, but it's a very small pie that you're splitting up.
I'm just curious what the ramifications for Trent Dilfer's future as a coach in the NCAA this is going to have, because are you going to be blackballed for being a guy who's encouraging your players to do what to kind of spit in the face of every other school recognized as part of the NCAA, because they don't want this. Almost publicly don't want. No one's actually out here saying they don't want this, but they are kicking and screaming to not have players recognized as employees.
You know the answer to that question, right?
I do, but that's why I asked it.
It will depend on how much he wins. If he wins a lot and has UAB winning conference championships, somebody will hire him at a higher level. If he doesn't win a lot, he will get fired from UAB and no one will ever touch him. So that's where he could get blackballed. I guess the gray area becomes, what if he is a guy that's regularly like 9-3, 8-4, 9-3, had success at a tough job.
Or I raise you this: what if he's the guy who just decides, I was part of the NFLPA, I've already got my UAB guys here,
I'm going to be the head of the Players Association.
I'm the captain now.
I can see it. I wouldn't rule it out. I bet he's looking around at all of this and going, somebody's going to have to do this.
I'm sure he's actively involved with whoever whatever law firm decides to decide and try and spearhead all of this. I don't know. We're in wild times because the dust is nowhere near settled.
No, the dust is just now kicking up. Like, we're just the dust storm hasn't even really started yet.
No.
We're like those people in like Kansas and Nebraska that film, like right now, that film the tornado that's like about to rip through their neighbor's house, like directly in their line of sight. And they stand there with the phone. No, those people are nuts. They just stand there. I'm not like, they just stand there with the.
There have been so many towns in Oklahoma right now that have been just destroyed by tornadoes in these last couple of days.
Don't stand on your porch and video it on your phone. Have you ever watched any of these? Their families are like, let's get inside. And they're like, oh, it's not even moving. Yeah, that's because it's coming right at you. You can't see it moving.
I like the guy last week who was on his first storm chase and got taken out by a semi that flipped over coming at him, and he was hit by the top of the semi and rolled his car. He was okay, but
there was a lady today I was watching in Kansas. She was like, it was coming straight at them, like about 2 streets away. And all of a sudden she's like, oh, there's the debris. I was like, how about you not getting hit in the head with a shiv of wood right now and get in your house?
And that's where we're at with the NCAA right now.
We are the people standing on the porch with our phone recording a tornado coming right at us.
The shiv of wood is coming.
It's about to hit you in the head. We'll see you tomorrow night. That's the Nightcap, brought to you by Galactic Fried Chicken. Right here on BearcatJournal.com.
See ya!